What's up, my wizards? It's Biggie D from Mtg down there. We're liking magic, and today we're going to look at Friday's Modern Horizon spoilers. There's a bunch of crazy stuff today, too. Every day, it's just like more and more hype. Cards are going to change the face of different formats. They have really hit it out of the park with this set. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I got a lot of superlatives to assign today. Now, just cleaning up some stuff from last night, we saw Cloudshredder Sliver, and outside of the first sliver, this looks like the second best sliver that we've seen so far. This is Boros colors, red and a white for a 1/1 sliver, and sliver creatures you control have haste and flying, and those are two of the best abilities you could possibly gift to other slivers, so that's good. Oh, and by the way, if you top deck this in the relative late game, a bunch of other slivers might be giving it really good abilities, so flying and haste are good abilities for it to have too, I really like the idea of this with the first sliver. If you have this out while you're just cascading like crazy with your first sliver, well, all those slivers that you're casting all in the same turn for very little mana all have flying and haste, so that seems like a nice little combo there. This is, again, probably my second favorite sliver in the set, easy so far, but let's look at Force of Rage. This cycle is complete now that we've seen the red one. It's 3 mana, 1 and 2 red. Of course, it can be free, though. It's an instant. If it's not your turn, you may exile a red card from your hand rather than pay this spell's mana cost. That's how you make it free. And you can create 2 3/1 red elemental creature tokens with trample and haste. You sacrifice those tokens at the beginning of your next upkeep. Okay, so this is not the red effect that I thought they would have gone with on the red force. And I think that's a shared sentiment throughout most of the community. A lot of people are scratching their heads at this, but I actually think this card's really good. And I keep comparing it, in my head, to 2 cards. So bear with me here. The first is Ball Lightning, and I think this is a fairly obvious comparison, 3 mana, and it's actually a little bit easier to cast than Ball Lightning. A lot easier to cast, for what that's worth, than Ball Lightning. But it gives you the same power over double the amount of bodies, and it actually gives you a second point of toughness. So that's nice. You're a little bit more likely to get through with 2 bodies than 1, so in a lot of ways, this is just kind of better than Ball Lightning, and it's an instance. You can use it as a combat trick, block some of your opponent's guys. There's a lot of ways you can use this card, but the other way that I keep thinking of using this card is sort of as a fire blast, in that it's just a free source of a bunch of damage all at one time. It's 6 damage at its peak potential, and Fire Blast just always does 4 damage for free, and is the much better card if you're just trying to burn the opponent, because it's not guaranteed you're going to get through for combat damage, and you're not going to lose one to a removal spell, whatever. So obviously, I think Fire Blast would have been the much better card, but that's kind of, I don't know if you can print that in Modern, to be honest with you. I think that would send things in the wrong direction. This is a lot safer, but it's still only 3 mana to cast it outright or completely free some of the time, which is pretty nice too, obviously. And it's just like a burn spell when played quickly enough. If you play this on turn 1 or 2, you're almost guaranteed to get through for your 6 damage. If you look at this as a Ball Lightning that causes a little bit of card disadvantage on your end, that just leads to 6 free damage worth of burn on turn 1, that's a pretty good way to use the card too. So there's just a lot of versatility on it, whether you're using it as a combat trick, add instant speed, opponent's turn, or you're just trying to get in for as much damage as you can on your turn for as cheap as possible. There's a lot of good things this card does, and I think that we're sort of misevaluating it because we're a little disappointed it doesn't do the things we thought it might do. But honestly, I think we might be underestimating this thing. This card looks really good from a lot of different angles. But let's look at Wings of Abandon next. This is 2 mana, 1 and a white for a sorcery. Exile target creature you don't control. For each creature exiled this way, its controller searches their library for a basic land card. Those players put those cards onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle their libraries. That remind you of anything? But you can overload this path to exile for 4 and 2 white. But even with the overload, is it worth playing over Path to Exile? I don't know. You might be able to just sneak in a 1 of this thing, because honestly, 6 is not much, 6 is a lot of mana in Modern, yes, but for this effect, that's about as low as the overload could have been costed for just a one-sided wrath. Your opponent, you get to go get a bunch of lands, whatever, but you also just get to kill them. So seems pretty good, especially for offensive decks that have a way to crack in as soon as they cast this for overload and just end the game for 6 mana. That seems like a pretty good play. And even the control decks that don't play a bunch of creatures might want a Path to Exile that becomes a late game top deck, just one-sided wrath. Again, there's a lot of good on this card, and I'm pretty sure that 1 or 2 copies are going to sneak their way into a bunch of decks. Now, very late last night, we also saw Plague Engineer. This is 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 2/2 carrier with Death Touch. And as it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type, see? And creatures of the chosen type that your opponents control get -1/-1. This card is bananas. No, seriously, it is. It's probably decent against the humans deck in Modern, the elves deck in Modern, if you ever come across that, you know. Even just like mono white and just, you know, basic mono-colored fast aggro decks. This is very good against because a lot of their creatures share a creature type, and if nothing else, you're going to kill like one small creature with this. You know, even if you just name like, you know, human or something like that, then you're going to kill a bunch of their one-drop creatures and just basically keep them from playing those one-drops ever again. Until they somehow kill this or move it from the battlefield. And that is probably good enough. You know, it's also worth mentioning that Engineered Plague on a stick is very good against changelings and whatnot in the limited environment. But honestly, I think this is just straight up competitive Modern playable. You know, 3 mana for not only like a Necrotal, you know, something that kills something when it enters the battlefield, especially against these aggro decks, it'll always kill something. But it's like an everlasting Necrotal, you know, that can never play that thing again. Or those multiple creatures that you killed, they can more or less never play those again until they get rid of this. And that's just insane. I know 3 mana 2/2s aren't super impressive, but I like kind of everything about this. Engineered Plague that can actually, like, attack. That's great, you know, and I know it's a little bit more susceptible to removal than an Engineered Plague is, but I kind of also do not care. You know, when you are ready to get rid of it, then you can just, like, block something. The Death Touch is really nice on this, you know, it's not just straight up a 3 mana 2/2, it's not a Scathe Zombies. The Death Touch is actually relevant on this thing when all's said and done, and the fact that it more or less kills, like, multiple creatures and keeps them from playing them for the rest of the game is like just insane. That's insane. I really like a lot about this card, and I think it's going to change some things in Modern. But oh boy, y'all, up next, Wizards printed a card just for me. Here's King of the Pride. 3 mana, 2 and a white for a 2/1 cat, and other cats you control get +2/+1. No, you're just not. You are not into it at all. You do not want that. Some loud fat man you barely know at this point in your life just yelling at you. You don't want that. But anyway, this card is good. This card is actually good. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the cat guy around these parts. I know that you just want to put it in your cat commander deck and whatever, but this card is not only the cat's meow. You're allowed to leave now, Waverly, in Commander deck. But in Modern, this actually can do some things. You got Savannah Lions in the 1-drop slot, that much is obvious, but you've also got like Sacred Cat if you want it, even like Charmed Stray, which looks like a Waverly. She's down there still. She's cleaning herself. She's having a great time. But in the 2-drop slot, you've got like Adorned Pouncer, which is that's a great way to curve Adorned Pouncer into this. It's pretty nice. But there's other stuff, you know, there's a Johnny's Pride Mate if you want to go that route, and even like Fleece Main Lion. There are good 2-drops to go with this. So I'm not saying that cat aggro is just like on and it's like definitely popping, but it's got some claws now. It finally has actual claws, and cat aggro tribal thing can be almost a real thing, and I want to give it a shot. I do like that it gives other creatures Savannah Lion stats, and it has Savannah Lion stats. There's a lot of cool nostalgia to this card, but it's also, you know, just like straight up gas in a lot of ways too. +2/+1 is no joke on your Anthem effect, and especially when there's a bunch of like great 1 and 2 drops to help support this card on turn 3. I think we actually have a deck in our hands. But let's get into some of the stuff that we saw this morning. There's still one more card from last night, but we'll save it for a minute here. Let's look at Fallen Shinobi first from this afternoon. This is 5 mana, 3 blue and a black for a 5/4 zombie ninja. That's a good creature type. With ninjutsu to a blue and a black. I was hoping we get some ninjutsu love in this set, and here we go. And whenever Fallen Shinobi deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles the top 2 cards of their library. Until end of turn, you may play those cards without paying their mana costs. You know, when you think about the fact that Wizards develops cards like a year or 2 in advance sometimes, it's pretty crazy that this came out around roughly the same time as Sekiro. It's also basically better Thief of Sanity in a lot of ways, you know. It's a little bit more expensive than Thief of Sanity, but the stats are like way, way better, and it's much more likely to like actually hit for combat damage. You know, if you get through something unblocked on turn 4, then just like switch it out. That's how ninjutsu tends to work. So, you know, get a flying creature through, or even get like I don't know, Mistcloaked Herald, like any little unblockable creature that gets through can suddenly turn into this massive body for the First of all, the body is actually really stout on this thing, but also massive card advantage, you know? This doesn't peel quite as much as a Thief of Sanity. You get 2 cards instead of 3, but you can get both of them. Instead of Thief of Sanity, you have to choose one of them, you know? So that's really nice. Being able to actually get 2 cards worth of value with this thing is absolutely insane. We also saw Sling-Gang Lieutenant today, which is just a great card in terms of flavor and flavor text, for that matter. But it's 4 mana, 3 and a black for a 1/1 goblin. That's not good stats for the mana cost, right? But check it out. When it ETBs, you create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens, so you get 3 bodies for your 4 mana. When you sacrifice a goblin, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So I really like this. I'm not sure that it's modern playable. 4 mana is an awful lot of mana. But maybe you have, you know, like your Skirk Prospector or something. Wily Goblin even could make the cut if you're just trying to get to something this big with this much effect. You know, being able to just like sack goblins and pop for damage is actually really good. And it's cool that it's a drain, too. You don't often see that on Gobos. Usually they just deal straight up damage. Sometimes they'll deal damage back to you, but gaining life, that's very rare. But in any case, this is just crazy for like red-black, like Wart the Raid Mother, Goblin Commander decks. This seems very poised, you know. And I like that this can be played a bunch of different ways, you know. Again, 4 mana gets you 3 bodies, which is actually pretty decent in and of itself. But if you want to then sack the bodies that this gives you for value by draining your opponent, you can do that too. So you can just transfer this into, you know, an immediate 2 drains if you don't need the bodies. So really versatile, and obviously Goblin Tribal decks can just go off and sacrifice a bunch of Goblin tokens, and that's the end of the game. So this is the kind of card that Goblins probably needed for a long time, although I fear that it's a little bit priced out. Now I'll stop off for a second to say that Pillage is back, and that's awesome to have Pillage in Modern. I actually really want Pillage in Standard, but those are very high hopes, and that will not happen ever. So if we get Pillage in Modern, that's pretty sweet. Another cool little piece of land destruction here. I can also take out like random artifacts when you needed to do that too. It's just Pillage has a long legacy of being an awesome card, and it turns out it lives up to it. It's a great card. So just throwing that out there. Pillage is back. But another red card that I think deserves a little bit of attention today is Orcish Hellraiser. This is 2 mana, 1 and a red for a 3/2 Orc Warrior, if only it were a goblin, right? And you can echo for a red. That basically means you have to pay the echo cost next upkeep after you play this or it dies. And when Orcish Hellraiser does die, it deals 2 damage to target player or planeswalker. I think this is pauper playable, like, all day, just on its face. 2 mana, 3/2, you kind of don't mind paying the Echo in your mono red deck, where you're usually going to be able to pay the Echo, and then play another 2-drop. Or play a 1-drop after you pay the Echo, even if you don't pick up a land that turn. You know, you started on a 2-lander, you don't draw another land, you can still pay the Echo for this and play a 1-drop, which is probably a decent line right there. So there's a lot I like about this in Pauper. I'm not sure that it makes the jump to Modern, although I will say, you know, 2 mana for something that might be able to block and trade up or something like that. And then if you don't pay the Echo, it's just kind of a delayed burn spell to your opponent's face. In a burn deck, you could use it that way. And if you wanted to, you could just pay the Echo and then, like, keep hitting your opponent for damage. And when it finally does die, it still, you know, cashes in for 2 damage. So I really like the trigger on this an awful lot. This is a great dies trigger. For such a cheap investment on a well-statted body, I just think there's too many things that come together about this card for it not to see play in, at the very least, like pauper aggro decks. But again, there's some chance this might actually make the jump to the big leagues. This is a very good card, and it looks unassuming at first, but especially for the common rarity, this thing is just kind of out of control. It's a very good card. But up next, let's look at Unbound Flourishing. This is 3 mana, 2 and a green for an enchantment. Whenever you cast a permanent spell with a mana cost that contains X, double the value of X. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell or activate an ability, if that spell's mana cost or that ability's activation cost contains X, copy that spell or ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. Now, there are a lot of cards in this set that I wish were standard legal, you know? But of all of them, this might be the one that I wish the most. We could actually play in Standard. Like, can you imagine this alongside Finales, you know? Like, copying Finales, even if you don't get them to X equals 10, actually seems like a ridiculous game, you know? And in Standard, we have, like, Banefire and Expansion Explosion for this to copy. That seems good. Hydroid Krasis seems great. You know, and honestly, copying any of these things doesn't seem too bad in Modern either. And in Modern, Walking Ballista? Yeah. Double that. That seems good. Also like Hangerback Walker, just any X creature, Hydras even, but mostly Walking Ballista I think is just going to be insane with this thing. Like maybe we'll see it in like a Hardened Scales deck, but I don't know how much setup you want to do in a deck like that. I think Hardened Scales is fast enough by itself, so I'm not really sure how much play this season Modern, but God, I wish we had this stupid card in Standard. The last thing I want to say before I get off this is I've already seen a lot of confusion. You know, a lot of players are saying, "Oh, I thought if you copied X spell, that X equals 0 in the copy of an X spell." That's not true. You copy an X spell, it copies the value of X. So yes, if you copy a Banefire, you'll get double the value of whatever you originally pumped into Banefire or Expansion Explosion or Fireball or whatever. So that's crazy. You know, it's an enchantment. The first time I looked at this card, I just kind of assumed it was a creature because of the art or whatever. But no, it's an enchantment. It's actually much, much tougher to deal with than a creature. So it's difficult to get this thing off of the battlefield. And if you can actually untap with it and play, oh, places you'll go. So I like the card a lot. But we're getting into the best cards of the day here. Let's take a look at Archmage's Charm. This is 3 mana, all 3 of it blue, for an instant, and it's modal. Choose one of these. Counter target spell, or target player draws 2 cards, or gain control of target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 1 or less. Gain control of target Death's Shadow. Seems like a pretty good ability. But there's a bunch of other 1-mana stuff in Modern that you might want to be stealing, so that seems pretty nice. Also, Giver of Runes. I keep bringing that card up, but you can steal Giver of Runes, and that seems like it might be pretty nice. There's a bunch of 1-mana just creatures that you can pull in Modern at this point, but note that it's non-land permanent, so, you know, shenanigans. There's lots of stuff you can steal with this in the Modern format, but this is also functionally a cancel when you sometimes need it to be that, but it's also like a divination at instant speed. Like, these modal cards like this are always much, much better than they might appear to be at first glance, because doing any one of these things, except for maybe the stealing bit really overpowers this, the thief text on the card, but honestly, doing any one of these things most likely wouldn't be worth it for your 3 mana, even at instant speed, but it's exactly what a control deck wants, is this kind of flexibility, and this feels like a mini Cryptic Command or something, so control players will probably almost certainly want to play this card in their main decks, and I just don't see a world where this doesn't see at least like 1 or 2 of play, because the ability to have this much stretch on one card is just absolutely banana boat, chocolate banana bar. It's just, I can't say how good this card is. I really, without, you know, without having YouTube, like, you know, demonetize me for cursing, I can't say how good this card is. But up next, let's have a look at the talk of the town. This is Hexdrinker right here. Just 1 green mana for a snake, and you can level it up for 1 mana. And once it's level 3 to 7, Hexdrinker has protection from instants, and it's a 4/4. And once it's level 8 and up, Hexdrinker has protection from everything, and it's a 6/6. A 4/4 with Pro Instance is actually not going to get hit by most removal spells in the format. And at an initial cost of Savannah Lions, you know, just a 1 mana 2/1, that's a good enough body in and of itself. Plus, the creature type might actually prove to be relevant here because, yeah, it's just a snake, but on turn 2, you play your Winding Constrictor, and suddenly things are looking really good when you start leveling up because you level up effectively twice as fast if you have a Winding Constrictor out. And since they're both snakes, you might actually be able to make a tribal deck out of that. So yeah, I'm talking and thinking fast here, but we're putting a deck together. Basically, at all points, this card is good. You know, if you play it on turn 1, it's at least decent stats. It's about as good of stats as you can hope for in the Modern or just about any format for that matter. And as the game goes on, the card just gets better. It's a great way to dump your mana. You know, level up cards are always a little bit better than they first read. You know, it looks like, oh, I got to pump so much mana into this thing. But it turns out that not only do games go long, but you need an effective way to use your mana on every turn. And if you don't have an efficient way to use your mana, this gives you a sink to dump it into. And that can be really, really nice. And you'll get to level, you know, 3+ before you know it. And having, you know, basically a 4/4 protection from instants that you only dumped a few mana into to get started is a good deal too. It's just a good deal no matter how much mana you put into it. And if you actually ever do get to protection from everything, it's just done, man. It's more or less done. It becomes unblockable. It can't be hit by any removal other than like sweepers that don't target. It's just a crazy, crazy card that's good pretty much no matter what level it is. But it's also not even my favorite card of the day. Let me show you Wren and Six right here. 2 mana, a red and a green, for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. And you can +1 it to return up to 1 target land from your graveyard to your hand. You can -1 it to have Wren and Six deal 1 damage to any target. And you can -7 this to have an emblem with instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard have Retrace. Maybe, like, really one of the best cards that we've seen so far. And I really don't think I'm shooting for the moon here. I think that this is one that's relatively undervalued so far, but the way you want to look at this is that it's a 2-mana Crucible of Worlds that's also removal, can shoot the opponent, gives you this insane emblem, and how are you not going to get value out of this in Modern? You know, we're talking about a format that includes fetch lands. You know, Field of Ruin and stuff like that too. There's just a million ways that you can use this for value in the Modern format, and those aren't the only 2 lands, obviously, that sacrifice for value. But just fetch lands alone are going to be worth, you know, playing this card. Because, again, 2-mana Crucible, that seems good by itself, but it can also, like, kill small creatures. That seems nice. Clean up after combat and, like, deal the last point of damage to this guy. Hit your opponent or deal a, hit a planeswalker. Sometimes that'll be relevant if, like, you know, Teferi or another planeswalker with a big minus just came down and went straight down to 1 loyalty. Bam, this will finish them off. So there's just so much you can do with this. And once you get the emblem, you're not unbeatable or anything, but it's just like, all of your instant and sorcery spells in your graveyard have Retrace. Like, do you understand how broken that is? In case you don't know what Retrace is, by the way, it basically gives all your spells in your graveyard flashback so long as you discard a land card and pay their casting cost. And that's just like, it's unbelievable craziness for an initial cost of 2 mana you can pull off with this card. I just think this is like one of the most, like, overpowered, least safe cards that we've seen in the set so far, by far, and the spread of options available on the card are just, this card is crazy, y'all. I don't know if you're calling the card bad, I don't know if you're underwhelmed by the card, but you're wrong to do and feel either one of those things, because even though I'm not sure this card just changes the face of Modern on day 1 or anything, the card looks relatively broken on its face with so much potential value for such a ridiculously low initial cost. I just think this card's going places. Oh, and by the way, if you don't call this thing Ren and Stimpy, there's something wrong with you. But anyway, I think that's all of the cards from Friday. There was some insanely hyped stuff today, so hope you guys enjoyed these. Give me your ideas for them down there in the comments section. Like the video if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new, or if you just haven't done it yet, hit the bell for the notifications. There's going to be more Modern Horizon spoilers coming up. Deck techs, arena gameplay, got a couple of lists to kick out before things are all said and done, so lots of content. Make sure you sub for it. Go over to TCG Player. First link in the description box below me down there. If you just click Show More, a wealth of information will open up for you, links and whatnot. You know? Not only can you go to TCG Player and pre-order any of this stuff or just sealed product if that's what you're looking for at the lowest prices on the interwebs, and I can actually say that truthfully. They got you. They got your back on that. Anyway, you can also hit links in the description to go to Patreon if you want to support content like this, or to just view our last Modern Horizon spoiler video if you want more of this content. So do all of those things, and I suppose I will catch you cats later. Just let me know how you felt about all these in the comment section. Modern Horizons is looking like, seriously, one of the best sets ever. Like, I was not super excited about the set when I first heard about it. My interest was piqued. My ears pricked up like, oh, new cards being introduced into Modern. That's going to be really cool. But nah, man, it turns out this set is just insanely bat balls, like bat dung crazy. I really don't want to get demonetized. But yeah, this set is good cards. Just let me know how you feel about all this garbage down there in the comments section. And, yeah, I guess that's it. I'll catch you cats later. I'm Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Spread love and be kind.